How's it going, everybody? We are going to talk about the 2025 archery season for whitetail in Wisconsin. And we are about a week away, a little less than a week away. It is going to be on September 13th of 2025. So throughout this whole year, I have been running the Yellowstone AI cameras out on some public land. You'll see some pictures popping up of some of the bucks that I've been watching throughout the whole year. Now, as we all know, when it comes to white-tailed deer, they run in a pattern pretty solid throughout most of the summer. It's, bed to food, bed to food. They're working on their antler growth, all that stuff. And so you can pretty much pattern a white-tailed deer pretty easy in summer. But now you'll start to notice your bachelor groups are going to start breaking up. Your bucks that you've had steady all summer long may not show up anymore. You might see only one of them, if you were noticing a lot of them. And that's kind of what I'm anticipating coming up here in the early season, is that I'm going to go out and sit pretty much all day on Saturday. And my hope is to get a doe down early and get some meat in the freezer and kind of hold off until I can really put in the work in November and everything for a nice buck. Now, that being said, that is not something that I'm, going to say I'm not going to shoot a deer, or if a buck walks in front of me that I won't be after it. So, I got a pretty steady couple bucks that we are after. And, one of them is probably my target buck, which would be Headstrong. I posted probably a picture of him, I think it was in Velvet Yet a couple weeks ago, just kind of showing the quality of the Yellowstone AI cameras. Now, he's been on camera a few times now. The other one that we are after is Tall Boy. He's a little younger than Headstrong. I'm imagining him at about a 3.5-year-old, very tall 8-point. Another buck that I'd be happy to take. I'm trying to, go with anything over 3.5 at this point. I am on public land, so I always looked at it as, if I don't shoot it, someone else will. The other one we got is Lowrider. Again, I believe he's another 3.5-year-old. He's a little bit shorter tines, but he's still a nice 8 to 10 pointer. I don't really go off the score at this point. It's something, that we'll work into throughout the years. At this point, I'm going to go with Headstrong is my number one. And then from there, we're going to go and get after Tall Boy. Now, again, either of them, beautiful deer. And where I'm at with the public land is I got a pretty good runway. I'm not necessarily hunting a food source. There are acorns in the area, which I have been seeing a lot of feeding does coming through all the time. I've been kind of thinking I'm going to run right now. I'm about 40 yards off of a swamp line. They run the ridge pretty solidly along that. And so what's happening is I kind of got into it last year, was as I was back in there, kind of noticed some sign early season, nothing too crazy from, historically wise. But then towards the end of, I would say right about the end of October, I went back in there and it was just tore up. You probably saw a couple videos last year, nothing too crazy. But there was a lot of historical sign going, within those last couple weeks of going up to the rut of, oh man, these bucks are in there. And so I was working my way in there and I ended up bumping a buck out of bed. And I was like, what are you going to do? I kind of worked my way back out of there. I didn't want to spook too much more. And I went back in there then right before the rut. And actually it was probably right in the rut that I went in there. Waited for the right wind, everything else. And ended up, again, kind of getting in and finding a nice spot to set up in. I was right off of a rub and a scrape. I knew bedding was a little bit farther up. And that's when I knew that I was in the right area to kind of get after a deer. And I ended up having a doe come in. I had shot in my buck from last year in that same spot at 20 yards broadside. And so that was really nice. That was my first bow buck. And then I decided to, again, like I said, go back in there early season this year and get a trail camera in there and see what I could watch, and see what was moving through there. And I'll be honest, it was pretty dead at the start. It was right after, gun season, and those deer were getting pushed around like crazy. Ended up, had a couple bucks come through. I noticed that had more bucks come through, but they dropped their antlers. So ended up going in and leaving that camera there and put another camera a bit farther down, which was a little less successful. I actually pulled that camera out and just let it sit, let the one Yellowstone AI camera just sit there, and it blew up. I mean, it was deer after deer. I noticed, old bucks versus young bucks, even with antlers missing, watching them grow then all year long and seeing the process of, going from a buck with to being a very nice mature deer. So I am excited for this year. I'm excited to see what is leading up to this for the 2025 season. And we're going to talk a bit about gear-wise what I'm running this year. So this year I'm running the Matthews V3X 29. I actually shot the bow last year as well. Performed phenomenally for me. I ran the same bow at TAC this year, and loved it. Ended up bumping up to 70 pounds this year, and I'm running the Carbon Express Reds right here. And so I'm actually also then running the Magnus Bee Stingers with the buzz cuts, 100 grain broadhead, fixed blade. I have these all sighted in and ready to go. I really have been liking the Magnus Bee Stinger broadheads. They have worked phenomenally for me. And then I have also then decided this year I'm going to run with the dual stabilizer on my bow. I've only ever ran with a smaller stabilizer on the front, and it works. But when I was shooting TAC this year, I could feel a difference in my hold when I was running with the dual. So I'm actually going to run that for my bow hunting setup as well. I upgraded to a black gold 3-pin slider for bow hunting this year. It's been really nice. I like the fact that, I set my 20, 30, 40 pin, don't get me wrong, so I don't have to adjust it much. But if I wanted to, I could literally just dial it right to that yardage and, be good to go. So I don't plan on shooting anything out super far. I'm no, long range archery, guy quite yet when it comes to hunting standpoint. Takes a lot of practice when you're trying to shoot out to 80, 90, 100 yards, especially on an animal. So not anything that I'm planning on doing. I'm definitely planning on trying to keep it within that 20, 30, 40 yards. We might bump out to 50 if, there was something that was a nice, easy shot, but I'm not seeing that happening. Especially as we all know how the hunting woods are. Other than that, I would say my overall setup is pretty much dialed and ready to go for this year. I'm shooting a lot, and I would recommend to anybody who's looking to go out, just get out there and shoot, which is where kind of our hat line kind of came from there. It was just get out and shoot. It's one of those things where when you're bow hunting, one of the best things you can do to get better is just shoot. So highly recommend, if you haven't been shooting your bow, you're only a week away, and some places are open already. So definitely get out there, shoot. Highly recommend it. Other than that, I'm going to say that would be my bow setup for the year. So I don't plan on changing anything this year anymore. I'll probably keep everything the exact same. I would tell you, if you're out there, get your adjustments done, and let's get out and get after it this week.